This week's big review comes courtesy of Time and Space. Thank you very much for supplying me with a copy of Shadowlands. This is cinematic scene setters from 0G. Here you've got 50 construction kits and the whole library is 16 gigabytes in size. So that's 1,480 audio files. You've got those in both the Apple Loops format and also acidized WAV format too. There's 659 instruments for the full version of Contact. You've also got Halion instruments. There's also instruments for Logic's EXS24 and for Reason as well. So the sounds here are cinematic soundscapes. They're perfect for suspense scoring. There's effects in there too. There's vocal atmospheres, rhythmic loops, cinematic loops, and hundreds of one-shot drum hits. It's quite a comprehensive sounding library. The best thing about this library is that it's pretty big and the price isn't too much for the content that you get on offer. It's also discounted by 20% until mid-February, which makes it just over £50. The soundscape sounds aren't too bad and they're extremely long. Each one is about 3 minutes long, so you get your money's worth there. They're all presented in a construction kit format, so you get the entire sample and you get all the elements of those as well, so that you can use them as the basis for entire cues. It's also nice to see that the samples have been tagged with the BPM in their file names, and also the key of the sample is written there as well. The folder of cinematic groove, drums and rhythm loops I think would be especially useful. However, having said that, there's a lot of problems with this library. First off, don't get too excited about the huge number of Contact instruments that I mentioned at the top of the review. There's over 600, but these are just the individual construction kit samples mapped across the keyboard. They don't even tempo sync or loop. So this is a serious problem because the instruments specifically called rhythm loops, for example, don't loop in Contact. You'd have to go into the Contact edit menu and turn the loop function on for yourself. There's also a bit of a problem with the start points of the full samples. There's a little gap there. It's not going to be huge if you're just dragging and dropping the samples into your DAW, but if you're trying to use them in Contact, they don't start immediately. You'll find that the one-shot drum hits are all very similar sounding and they're absolutely drenched in reverb. Now, I can appreciate that this is kind of cinematic, epic scoring, that's the vibe of this library, but the drum hits sound so similar because they've got so much reverb on that I really can't tell the difference between the majority of them. I also found that the naming of the samples could be more descriptive. It's nice to have the key and BPM mentioned, as I said before, but for example, the effects samples, they're just called effects 1, 2, 3, all the way up to the hundreds, with no indication of if they're risers, downers, impacts, or anything like that. This could have been done a lot better. So what did I think overall? Well, I always try and think when I put these reviews together whether the products are value for money and whether they're going to be useful for me. Now, I know there's always going to be some composers who will find certain elements of a library useful, but for me there's far few reasons to pick it up. The core atmospheres and elements of the 50 kits sound alright, but if you've been composing for a little while and your hard drive is already stuffed with these kinds of soundscapes, well, I know mine is, so there's not really any need to pick up Shadowlands. The limitations of the Contact instruments will only make them useful for quickly auditioning the sounds, so the only real value of Shadowlands is in the WAV files themselves. Now, of course, some people are going to find the long evolving soundscapes and loops really handy for creating quick and easy underscoring, but for me, I've already got these types of sounds and there's already libraries which are a lot more user friendly. I really hate saying this, but I don't recommend that you pick up this library unless you're really desperate for some more soundscapes or it's reduced in price in a future sale. Thank you so much for watching. That's just a small taste of the Samplecast, a weekly podcast and YouTube show for sample library geeks and plugin enthusiasts. You can find out more information at thesamplecast.com. Don't forget to subscribe.